Hey guys, it is West here, back with another episode of Laika Oreo on the, of course, account that is based around Laika. And yeah, so we're starting off in some Giants B10 here. It has been a month, maybe a little bit more than a month and some change, we'll say, since my last Laika Oreo video. And I'm sorry for the downtime between episodes. However, I was trying to get as much progress as possible, and there was the whole vacation thing. I explained this a little bit in the From the Crumbs episode, if you saw that. So, anyways, without anything else holding me back from talking more about the account specifically, you guys may be able to notice a Vero in my team and a Megan rather than a Shannon. Now, we'll talk a little bit about Megan before we move into Vero. Vero, I think, is a essential unit for some things that I want to do on this account. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. But Megan, I did build up Megan because I wanted a unit that synergizes really well in Arena with Lucian. I don't have a Lucian on any of my other mains, and I consider my mains to be my main account, of course, from the Crush Cookie account, This Is My Laika account, which is, another one of my main accounts, and then my little brother's account, which I haven't made any significant videos on yet. However, his account is an account that's based on some Nat 3 and below units, so I get to play around with high elementals and imp champions and all this other stuff, all these other units that I don't play around with on my account. So we'll talk about that in the future. Excuse me. I do want to make some videos on that account, just discussing each of those units and their points in the game. But anyways, I don't get to use a Lucian on any of my other accounts. So on this account, I really want to take advantage of Lucian in every area of the game that we can. I know this is the Laika account, but it's kind of hard to ignore the presence of the Lucian here. So as such, I've built Megan to synergize well with him in Arena. As you know, Bernard into Megan is a 60% attack bar boost, I believe. I believe Megan is a 30%, not a 25%. But between Bernard and Megan, my Lucian can be really, really low speed and still get the first turn, or still get a turn before the enemies, meaning that my Lucian can go in and do a big nuke. So using a Bernard-Megan composition, I can rely more on my Lucian's damage output than requiring him to have more speed to compensate for the need for speed, or so to speak, or so to say, in Arena, as there is in this current meta. Because the current Arena meta is all revolving around speed. It's not really about survivability as much as it is outspeeding your opponent and doing what you want to do before they can do what they want to do. So as such, Bernard Megan comboing into Lucian is really, really nice, and allows my Lucian to be more damage oriented and not have to really care about speed. However, Megan in this team does sacrifice a little bit of consistency, something I've spoken about on previous accounts. An issue I had on Starry Knight's account when building her account up. Megan is a great unit, has a lot of potential, and it has a lot of usability throughout the entirety of the game, whereas Shannon does slowly fall off. However, the attack bar increase is sometimes the downfall of your team, as it will sometimes throw the speed tuning to the boss and the towers a little bit off or out of whack. And I've noticed this with Vero's cleansing. It's sometimes really funky because he's gotten more attack bar than he should have between a Bella heal and a Megan attack bar increase. It could sometimes be detrimental to have too many attack bar increases, as it throws off the consistency of a team, whereas just having all your units fast and having units that don't affect attack bars means that your team is going to consistently do the same thing and there's less variables. And by having different combinations of units that throw an attack bar, you add more variables to your team, therefore throwing away some of the consistency. But you could see it's about a 2-minute team here. It's fairly consistent, upwards of 95%, so I'm not worried about it. Like I said, it does fail sometimes. In most case scenarios, it's actually down to, I think, Bella, Vero, Megan, or Laika, Bella, Megan. And it's usually some combination of those units. Lucian usually dies, and that's fine because Lucian's only job here is to do damage. As with Laika, I expect to tank most of the damage as he is a fire unit. So yes, it sounds bad that my units are dying, but at the same time, the units that die are primarily damage dealers, and so you can't really expect them to have a lot of survivability. And essentially, in any kind of team where you're using more than one damage dealer and you have some supports in the team, you're basically using the supports as the backbone of your team, as the structure, the foundation of the team, and you're using the damage dealers only to speed up the time, not to make the run better or more consistent. As essentially Vero, Megan should be able to basically hold down the fort for the most part and be able to take care of this giant. So I'm not really too worried about the damage dealers dying. We are going to talk about Vero. Amazing cleanser. It's not really necessarily the reason I brought him or I fused him. So as I've talked about on my Crushed Cookie account recently, I've been, since my very first time building a Vero, I've been obsessed with the idea of a damage dealer Vero. This is the first time I ever saw his multipliers. Ever since then, I've been really obsessed. Just because Vero's first skill multiplier is the same as Theo, and as such, he can see the same numbers. And he has an innate cleanse built into his kit, which means he's a damage dealer with a huge upside to your team. He also has this nice leadership skill, which helps for some consistency, because you can see there I could take a fair amount of damage from the boss, even with the boss having an attack buff sometimes, but typically with the 2 strips on my team, I don't have to worry about the attack buff on the boss. But yeah, having Vero here is nice because I don't have to worry as much about the AI derping, which is of course a huge problem in this game, and I'm not saying it's a problem that the developers need to fix, because it's a core mechanic of the game. Is you're just constantly trying to fight the AI when you do dungeon farmings, whether it's giants, dragons, necros, raid, even TOA if you auto it. You're always going to be fighting the mechanics of the game, or the AI of the game, and trying to increase the stats of your units to make up for that, whether it's putting violent sets on or giving them lots of speed. But having a passive skill that does what you want your team to do innately increases the success rate, and therefore helps your progression a lot, because you don't have to worry as much about fighting AI. So it's kind of like a loop that you can bypass just by having a passive unit. So that's why I like Vero here. I do plan on building him as a damage dealer as soon as I can get the Swift runes to do so. I think it'll cut my time down maybe by 15 or 16 seconds along the way, of course. Also trying to skill up my Lucian all the way and giving him better runes, because of course we're always going to be increasing the runes quality on Lucian and making Laika tankier. That's another thing I want to talk about. There's not too much left to talk about on Vero besides, Vero's, very cookie cutter support unit, good leadership skill, dots, stuns, and cleanses. Like I said, he was built to be a speed-based damage dealer in the future, not as current state, of course. Also, one small aside to talk about before I move on to talking about Laika. Another reason why I really like Megan, really good for a beginner Dragon Speed 10 team. Vero, Bella, +1, and a Verd. So +1 might be whatever, might be Laika, I might find a reason to force Laika in there just because it's fun, not because it's more reasonable than a Sigmaris or Spectra. But let's talk about Laika a little bit. So in the past month or so, I've been, thinking more and more about Laika and his kit and how much I like having high HP on him so that he has a little bit more survivability. And I recently, of course, put him on an attack crit damage HP build, which allowed him to farm Fame and Hell more consistently. Gives him a lot more survivability here in Giants, because sometimes with a defense buff on him from Megan, he doesn't even take enough damage to really activate his passive that would reduce the damage to a minimum or a maximum of 30% of his HP. So having that high HP, sometimes I don't even have to worry about his passive, which is nice. It gives him a lot of extra survivability, whereas at low HP, he could get taken down from 3 golem hits or whatever. But I do want to give him a lot more HP and defense in the future, and we'll go ahead and talk about his base stats a little bit here, since of course the focus of this account is Laika. His crit damage is still not what I want it to be. His speed I want to be way faster, and I think his attack is fairly reasonable for a fatal set and having only attack percentage on slot 2, whereas previously on a vampire set we had attack, crit damage, attack, and don't get me wrong, the vampire set wasn't amazing, but we were hitting about the same attack. We only lost like 50 attack or something when I changed over to this build on fatal attack, crit damage, HP, so pretty happy about that. I feel like we've gotten a decent amount of resistance subs, right? Yeah, like 18% resistance subs, which doesn't sound like a lot. No, 28%? Yeah, because you start with 15, you get 25, that's 40. So I got like 28% resistance through substats. Something that was not on purpose. Do I have 28% resistance? Yeah. So I got a fair bit of resistance through substats, which was not completely intentional, but I am really happy about that, because something that really hinders Laika in terms of taking out those towers and giants is being stunned by crystals, being stunned by a golem attack, whatever. Means that he's not getting his attack off, means he's not taking down those crystals. And I don't know how many times I've mentioned this, or if I've mentioned this directly in a video before, but the big reason why Laika is so good in giants, besides tanking all the hits and being able to survive, is because he's a fire unit. He's going to always prioritize the crystals. Crystals are the main reason why I would lose a Lucian or lose another support. So he basically does the same thing as Hua would do in a team. Besides reducing attack bar, he does massive damage to those crystals, and he can basically one-hit those crystals every single time. So he's there to take out crystals, give my team some more survivability by tanking some damage. But having that extra HP is really good. He's got okay crit rate. I would like his crit rate to be more than 85. I mean, 90 or 100% crit rate's really good on Laika, since he can't glance on any element. It makes him really strong for, you know, certain areas of Guild Wars. Probably also notable while I'm talking about Guild Wars is to mention that I have moved him over to this new guild with the Crushed Cookie account, Starry Nights in this guild, and now the Laika account's here. And the Laika account just got into the attacks, which was pretty nice, because it's something I wasn't worried about for a long time, because I was too worried about building those giveaway accounts, was getting this account into Guild Wars. Something I wasn't worried about, just because Guild Wars is an extra thing I have to make sure I'm on top of every day, because if I'm in a guild, I don't want to let the guild down. I don't want to be in Guild Wars and be wasting a spot for attackers. But here, I had a fair bit of contribution. I mean, between the 3 accounts, my 2 accounts and Starry Night's account, we were able to do a fair bit of damage on this guild alone. I am going to start thinking about Ifrit summons. You can check here, I have no pieces toward an Ifrit. I haven't even attempted to summon an Ifrit yet on this account. So that'll be nice to aim for in the future. I don't have a lot of monsters for World Boss. TOA, farming through TOA, I'm going to be able to complete TOA 70 this rotation, maybe potentially higher. That also means that I'm going to finish this challenge down here, and I'm going to get 100 summoning stones, which could possibly mean another chance at a Lucian. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to sound greedy, but while there is a Lucian rotation, as well as having 3 amazing Nat 5s as well, right now 2 amazing Nat 5s, Chao and Tiana. There's also Lucian here, there's Chloe, which could be nice, there's Wind, Kung Fu Girl, which could be good for skill ups, and there's Fire, Barb King, which also could be good for skill ups. And that leads me into my next thing I want to talk about here, which is the events. And the events are usually really weird. They don't like to pop up correctly. Okay, there we go. They're popping up on video. I have been doing this event on every account, and I'm not gonna say directly that the event is rigged, but being on 5 different accounts, having completed a minimum of 5 summons on each of those accounts total, so about 25, more than 25, because some accounts are up to 8 or even 9 today in terms of how many of these they've summoned. I have yet to see a Chasoon, and I've yet to see a Lucian on any of those, which I'm not trying to say, you know, the event is rigged, but it seems a little suspicious that those units aren't appearing anywhere. And I know it's about a 30% chance. I think it's actually a little bit higher than a 30% chance. I mean, no, it might be a little bit lower than a 30% chance to see one of those units, because there's like 30-something Wind Nat 4s. I counted this up before the event. I mean, we'll hop back in here real quick so I don't sound like a complete idiot on the video. So what, 8, 16, 24, 29, and 34. So 34. And we have 10 chances, so yeah, a little bit less than 33%. So yeah, it's around 30%, 29% chance of seeing a Lucian or a Chasoon, and I haven't seen any of those, so not to say that the event is rigged. It's just a little bit upsetting to me that on none of the accounts I've seen any of the monsters I'm looking for. That said, I don't have a Wind Barbarian King on the account, so if I don't see a Lucian on the last few summons for this Laika account, I will be taking the Wind Barbarian King, which is not a bad thing at all, because as we've seen on the Crushed Cookie account, the Wind Barbarian King can put in some serious work. I've got some other units here that could probably pair decently well with him. Anyways, what I've been working toward now is trying to make more 6 stars, not just for fun, but for somewhat progression-based content stuff. A 6-star I was thinking about was Vertihill. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to rush into dragons, but thinking about how easy it is to make a beginner's dragons team, like, not to say that for any of those people who have struggled with it for a while that they're doing it wrong, or that, you know, they're not capable of doing it because they're not good, but it is a lot simpler than people think to make these early Dragons V10 teams. And usually I don't even think about farming stuff like that, but I've been flying through these crystals, and I'm actually starting to get worried that I fly through them faster than I'm going to be able to get more. Because, I mean, clearing maybe TOA normal 70 every rotation, and hopefully up to TOA hard 40 or 45, maybe 50, is not going to give me enough crystals to sustain the amount of farming that I do on this Laika account. So I probably want to stay with runs that are on the slower side, so I can try to get better stuff in the time that I'm farming, and still not have to worry about flying through crystals. Whereas, you know, with the Crushed Cookie account, we're worried about speeding it up. So I'm thinking that maybe when our Giants B10 team gets to be whatever, you know, sub 130, even just sub 2 minute, and it starts to become an issue, you know, that we're just flying through all of our crystals, that's when I might start thinking about building my slower Dragons B10 team. Now, I'm not forcing my way into it. I'm not going to rush into it, of course, on this account. However, I do want to start getting ready for that. Also, being in this guild with the other accounts, and now having a direct interaction with the Crushed Cookie account and Starry Nights account, that means that my input in the guild on this account not only grows, but also increases, you know, the responsibility I have and the negative effect I could have on my other account, or the other accounts, if I don't, like, put out enough damage, or take out enough bases, or do enough guild contribution, period. So I need to start building more 6-star units so that my contribution to the guild is good enough to validate the position that I'm taking up by being in it. You know, so basically just 6-starring some more units that are multi-purpose. Of course, I want to build some units that are good in TOA as well as Guild Wars. Whatever my next 6-star will be, regardless, it will have to help me at least in 2 areas of the game. I'm not going to be 6-starring any TOA-specific monsters at this point in time. I'm not going to be fusing Beretta anytime soon, just because I have other priorities. And I could probably clear TOA normal without Beretta if I prioritize my runes correctly and put the right units into my team. I was looking at Lupinus also, something semi-mentionable, just as a potential side damage dealer for Giants, although at this point in time, I don't see myself putting a Galleon in. If I did put a Galleon in, I might put Lupinus in the team as a despair damage dealer who can deal max HP base damage to the mid-boss and to the Giant. Also, she's got some attack bar reduction built into her kit, so she might be able to help there. And with that, she would also help in TOA, so it'd be one of those units that would be multi-purpose. I was looking at that. Other than that, in terms of units, I am looking for runes for Galleon all the time, even though I'm not focused on building Galleon at this point in time. If I do see runes that are really good for him, or that scream Galleon's name, and I'm saying runes that have good speed, good accuracy, but maybe their HP and defense substats aren't really on par for what I'm looking for my dungeon teams, then I'll think about sliding those on the Galleon, because it'd be nice to have him for Guild Wars. This is what I have him on now. A fairly mediocre speed HP, Swift Energy set. HP is low, defense is low. He's got okay accuracy for Giants, but for Arena or for any sort of PvP, I'd like him more like 60 or 70% accuracy. I haven't really used him yet because there's no point to put him in any team comps that I use, since my primary damage dealer is Lucian, and if I have a backup damage dealer in my Arena team, it is Laika. I'll go ahead and show you guys my Arena team, as there's only one team I use, and there's not too much to say about it. Here we've got 2 fire units, but I don't even care. Having Lucian is really it's a huge difference between my account and the Laika account, is having this Lucian. And even with fire units, you'll glance sometimes, but sometimes you won't glance, and sometimes you'll just annihilate fire units. And this wasn't a great example because the monsters weren't even awakened or 6-starred, and I'm guessing there's very poor rune priority on these units. But I mean, Lucian just plows through everything, and if I need to kill anything, then Laika's there to back me up. So this is what I've been using in Arena. So I haven't had a need for Galleon. Not to mention I don't have any AoE nukers currently that would need Galleon in the team. But if I did plan on Galleon, I mean, I'd probably keep Bernard Laika in the team somewhere and just put in Galleon and whatever else I needed. In the future, if I need a speed lead, I can convert my team into this. Although I don't plan on building Chiwu necessarily. If I get Despair Runes, since I'm not building a Beretta right now, I might build Chiwu. There are some stages of TOA where there's an abundance of immunity or other buff effects, so Chiwu could be useful there, as well as having a sleep, beneficial effect removal, and block for a health stage, and the AoE strip. He could be useful in TOA. Also, the big reason is the speed lead. I mean, let's be honest, the big reason I would use him in Arena or TOA is the speed lead is just awesome, the 24%. But that's about it for the Laika account. I've been farming away, getting these. I've gotten a few good slot 1s, I believe. Like this rune's okay. This rune is. I was pretty happy about this rune. I wish this was a legendary rune, by the way. I wish this had rolled. Yeah, I wish this had rolled one more into crit damage or crit rate rather than the flat HP. But still, it's a good rune. This is a really nice rune. And let's see. There's a slot 2 rune that I was super excited about. There was one crafted from the event. So this was the event rune that happened a while back. There was this rune. So this was a purple rune with crit rate, HP, and crit damage. And this is one of those runes where you look at it and you're like, oh man, this is one of those runes that screams potential and then hits flat HP 3 times in a row. Because this was a hero rune, I believe at least. And the way it rolled, if I remember correctly, was well, it rolled 3 times into crit damage. But it was like the rolls aren't too bad, because I mean, if you look at it, right, the maximum that it could be with a maximum base roll and then 3 rolls into crit damage is 28% crit damage. So it's only 4% lower than it could have potentially been, which for this point in the game is pretty amazing. Plus the 5% crit rate and it being an attack percent slot 2. I mean, this rune is really, really exciting. A rune that could potentially someday receive grinds, so is good enough to keep for a good long while. 29% effective crit rate, crit damage. My own like weird wording that doesn't make sense if I don't explain it every time, is really, really good on a rune, because essentially, you know, you want whatever 23% total crit rate and crit damage. If you add the 2 stats up on a substat, just add the percentages up. That's like the average you want on each rune. So for a really good nuker. So having this early on is really, really exciting. I don't know who it's going to go on. Maybe Damage Dealer Vero. It doesn't have speed or accuracy, so maybe a Tark eventually. That's something that could be very real in the future. Putting this on a Tark seems pretty smart, since it has the core stats of a Tark, just missing speed. But I mean, Tark doesn't really need an insane amount of speed on a Swift set anyways. But the rune was super exciting, so I thought I'd share that. There's not too much else. Like I said, I'm going to be farming like crazy in Giants until my crystals run out. I'm also going to be working toward going a little bit higher in TOA if I can, and farming this Guild War stuff, coming up to this, you know, Guild War dungeon that's coming out, this Guild War PvP thing that they're releasing soon. So I'm getting units ready for that. We'll see when that releases, if anything changes in terms of the runes that I should be farming or the units that I should be building for that. Because like I said, I do want to contribute to the guild as much as possible to help out my other accounts. But yeah, that's it. I'm going to try to reach a little higher in Arena and probably rune up Spectra. But yeah, that's about it for my progression stuff and for what I'm going to do in the future. If you guys have any questions or comments, always feel free to leave them below. And like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hey guys, it's West again. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for more.